The voice came again in the darkness. It was not loud. It was not angry. It was a whisper that moved through the walls of the small farming house like wind through dry leaves. Cale opened his eyes and stared at the wooden ceiling above his bed. His heart was beating fast. Every night for 3 months now, the voice had called to him. It spoke in a language he did not understand, but somehow he knew exactly what it meant. Come to me. Find me. You are the one. Cale was 17 years old. He lived on a small farm on the outer edge of the Valorian Empire. The empire stretched across 12 star systems, and humans were considered the weakest species within its borders. They were farmers, workers, and servants. They had no magic like the Valori. They had no strength like the Goroth. They had no long lives like the Sindari. Humans were simply humans. Small, short-lived, and unimportant. But the voice did not seem to care about any of that. Cale sat up in his bed and looked out the window. The 3 moons of Velaris Prime hung in the sky like pale eyes watching him. His father and mother were sleeping in the next room. His younger sister was in her bed, across from his. None of them heard the voice. Only Cale heard it. Only Cale felt its pull. He had tried to ignore it at first. He had told himself it was just a dream, just his imagination playing tricks on him. But the voice became stronger with each passing night. It called to him with such need, such ancient longing, that he could no longer pretend it was not real. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow he would find out where it was coming from. The morning came with golden light spreading across the farmland. Cale worked in the fields with his father, pulling weeds from the soil and checking the irrigation systems. The work was hard, but Cale did not mind it. It gave him time to think. It gave him time to plan. His father was a quiet man named Dorian. He had been a soldier once many years ago, before the Great Surrender. That was when the humans had given up their fight against the Valorian Empire and accepted their place as a lesser species. Dorian never talked about those days, but sometimes Cale saw a fire burning in his father's eyes, a fire that refused to die completely. That evening, when the work was done and the family sat down for dinner, Cale made his decision. He waited until everyone was asleep. Then he slipped out of the house and into the night. The voice guided him. It pulled him forward like an invisible hand wrapped around his chest. He walked through the fields, past the old water tower, past the broken fence that marked the edge of their property. He walked into the forest that no one ever entered. The locals called it the Dead Woods because nothing grew there properly. The trees were twisted and dark. The ground was covered with black moss. People said it was cursed, but Cale did not feel afraid. He felt like he was finally going home. He walked for 2 hours. The voice grew louder with each step. It was no longer a whisper. It was a song. It was a symphony of ancient power calling out to him across the centuries. And then he saw it. In the center of a small clearing, there was a stone pillar rising from the ground. The pillar was covered with symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. And embedded in the top of the pillar was a sword. It was not a large sword. It was not decorated with gold or jewels. It was simple and plain, with a straight blade and a handle wrapped in old leather. But when Cale looked at it, he felt his entire body begin to shake. This was not just a sword. This was something much more. He walked closer. The symbols on the pillar began to glow brighter. They were written in an ancient human language, one that had been banned by the Empire centuries ago. But somehow, Cale could read them. Only the blood of the true inheritor may claim this blade. Only the heart of the worthy may awaken its power. Only the soul of the pure may wield it against the darkness. Cale reached out his hand. His fingers touched the handle of the sword. A blast of energy exploded from the pillar and threw him backward. He landed hard on the ground. The air knocked from his lungs. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the sword was glowing. It was glowing with a golden light that seemed to come from within the metal itself. He stood up and approached it again. This time, when he touched the handle, there was no explosion. The sword slid free from the stone as easily as pulling a knife from butter. It was warm in his hand. It hummed with power. And in his mind, he heard a new voice. Not the whispered calling that had haunted his nights, but a clear, strong voice that spoke directly to his thoughts. I am Solarius. I was forged 10,000 years ago by the first humans, the ones who sailed the stars before the fall. I have waited for you, Kale of the Blood. I have waited for the one who would rise and restore what was lost. Kale did not understand. He was just a farm boy. He was nobody. But the sword seemed to think otherwise. Over the next few weeks, Kale kept the sword hidden. He buried it beneath the floor of the barn and covered the spot with hay. He told no one what he had found. But every night, he would dig it up and practice with it under the light of the moons. The sword taught him. It showed him fighting styles that had been forgotten for millennia. It showed him how to channel its energy through his body. It showed him the truth about humanity. Humans were not always weak. 10,000 years ago, before the rise of the Valorian Empire, humans had been the greatest species in the galaxy. They had built ships that could travel between stars in the blink of an eye. They had created weapons that could destroy entire planets. They had mastered both science and something that other species called magic, but was actually just a deeper understanding of the universe itself. But then came the betrayal. A group of humans had made a deal with the ancestors of the Valori. They had traded their species' power for personal gain. They had destroyed the ancient knowledge, buried the weapons, and erased the history. Humanity had been reduced to nothing, and the other species had taken control. Solarius was one of the few weapons that had survived the betrayal. It had been hidden by loyal humans who hoped that one day someone worthy would find it and begin the restoration. Kale was that someone. The change in him was gradual but undeniable. His muscles grew stronger. His reflexes became faster. His mind became sharper. He could hear things from far away. He could see in the darkness. The sword was awakening something inside him, something that had been sleeping in his blood for generations. His father noticed the change first. One day, while they were working in the field, Dorian pulled Kale aside and looked at him with serious eyes. Something is different about you, he said. Tell me the truth. Kale hesitated. Then he told his father everything. He showed him the sword. He explained what it had revealed to him. When he was finished, Dorian was silent for a long time. Then he did something that shocked Kale completely. He knelt down. I always knew this day would come, Dorian said. Your grandmother told me stories when I was a boy. She said our family carried the blood of the old kings, the ones who ruled before the fall. I never believed her. But now I see it was all true. Things moved quickly after that. Word spread quietly through the human settlements. There were others who remembered the old stories. There were others who had kept faith across the generations. They came to Kale in secret, pledging their loyalty, offering their help. But the Empire eventually learned what was happening. The Valori High Council sent soldiers to the farm. They came in armored vehicles with weapons drawn. They demanded that the humans surrender whatever weapon they had found. Kale stood in front of his home with Solarius in his hand. Behind him stood his father, his mother, his sister, and dozens of others who had come to join them. The Valori soldiers laughed. They were twice as tall as humans. Their purple skin was thick and hard like armor. Their magic crackled around their fingers. Surrender, human, the commander said. You cannot win against us. Your species never could. Kale smiled. He moved so fast that the Valori commander did not even see him coming. Solarius cut through the air and sliced the commander's weapon in half. A blast of golden energy exploded from the blade and knocked down a dozen soldiers. Kale spun, ducked, and struck again. Each movement was perfect. Each strike was precise. The sword sang in his hand, and he sang with it. The battle was over in minutes. The Valori soldiers who survived retreated in terror. They had never seen anything like this. No human had fought like this for 10,000 years. News of the battle spread across the empire like fire. Humans everywhere began to whisper the name of Kale. They began to remember the old stories. They began to believe that maybe, just maybe, their long night was finally coming to an end. The Valori High Council was furious. They sent more soldiers. They sent their best warriors. They sent their most powerful mages. But Kale defeated them all. Each victory awakened more of his ancient power. Each victory inspired more humans to join him. Within a year, the rebellion had spread to 7 star systems. Humans who had been servants and farmers were now soldiers and generals. They found other ancient weapons, other forgotten technologies. The knowledge that had been hidden for millennia began to resurface. And at the head of it all was Kale, the farm boy who had heard the call of an ancient sword. The final battle took place above the capital world of the Empire. A fleet of human ships faced the combined might of the Valorian armada. The Valori Emperor himself watched from his throne, confident that this would be the end of the human uprising. He was wrong. Kale stood on the bridge of his flagship, with Solarius glowing in his hand. The sword's power flowed through him and into the ship itself. The ancient human technology responded to his blood, to his will. A beam of golden light shot from the flagship and cut through the Valorian armada like a blade through flesh. The Emperor surrendered before the battle was even finished. The Valorian Empire fell that day, replaced by a new order. The other species expected humans to take revenge, to enslave them as they had been enslaved. But Kale did not believe in that kind of justice. "We are not what they made us," he told the gathered representatives of a dozen species. "We are what we choose to be. We will build a new galaxy together, or we will fall apart alone." Solarius hummed in agreement. The sword had found its rightful owner. The farm boy had answered its call. And humanity had finally remembered who they truly were.